And look, I don't doubt that there was a lot of people there. I doubt how did they get there? How did they acquire the ticket? All right. What happens? Corporations buy a pool of tickets. Celebrities buy pools of tickets.
That right there is the sound of a scam getting exposed in real time. 21,000 people showed up to Unrivaled's so-called historic basketball day in Philadelphia, and immediately people started doing victory laps on social media, claiming it was the largest attendance ever for a women's sporting event. Except there's one massive problem with that claim, and Caitlin Clark fans made sure everyone knew it.
So right here, and there's a lot of these kind of tweets going around. I know the CC fans aren't the one that broke the women's attendance. Oh, shit. It's a bad idea. You went out there running your mouth. It was a bad idea.
Look at that response. 55,000 fans, not 21,000. 55,000 people showed up to watch Caitlin Clark play a college basketball game in a football stadium in Iowa. The University of Iowa literally moved their basketball game outdoors to Kinnick Stadium because they knew the demand would be that insane. They told the football team to clear out because Caitlin Clark was coming to play, and they nearly doubled the NCAA's former single-game attendance record in the process.
Yeah, by the way, wasn't this like an unrivaled doubleheader or some shit? Wasn't that a thing? Is that a thing? Somebody told me that. Actually, it was CC fans who broke the record, and Unrivaled ain't even close. Uh-oh. That time they booked a football stadium so more people could watch Caitlin Clark live. Over 55,000 fans showed up. Oh, you done called the fans out.
That's not just a packed house. That's a phenomenon. Over 55,000 fans paid actual money to sit in an outdoor football stadium in Iowa weather to watch a college basketball game. Not a doubleheader. Not a manufactured event with corporate ticket giveaways. A single game. And here's what makes this whole Unrivaled situation even more suspicious. The timing. The aggressive marketing. The way those 21,000 tickets materialized.
Bullshit. Excuse my language. Because if you don't think for a second that politically driven corporations didn't get involved in this, if you don't think they didn't find a way to give out tickets to everything they possibly could to get as many people, and look, I don't doubt that there was a lot of people there.
Because if you think for 1 second that politically driven corporations didn't get involved in padding those numbers, you're not paying attention to how this works. Corporate ticket purchases, celebrity bulk buys. One WNBA player allegedly bought 60 tickets just for friends and family. 60 tickets from one person. That's how you manufacture an attendance number without actually having organic fan demand. And people are starting to ask the uncomfortable questions. How cold was it in Philadelphia that day? Were those free tickets being handed out to get bodies in seats?
Caitlin Clark's going to play. So let me just give you a little specific here. The Iowa Hawkeyes played a historic women's college basketball game, in an outdoor football stadium when more than 55,000 fans showed up, nearly doubling the NC2A's former single-game attendance record.
The Nebraska women's volleyball team drew 92,000 fans to a match. 92,000, but somehow that doesn't get mentioned when people are claiming Unrivaled broke attendance records. The selective memory is fascinating, and what's even more fascinating is watching people try to drag Caitlin Clark into this narrative. Oh, look at all these people showing up and Caitlin Clark is nowhere to be seen. Well, yeah, she's not playing in a 3-on-3 league that's hanging on by a thread. She's resting. She's preparing for an actual WNBA season where her presence will matter.
Don't do it, because you're going to get on. Wow, Caitlin Clark living rent-free. Caitlin Clark's popping tents in these people's heads and chilling out, cooking some barbecue on the grill, camping in these people's heads.
This is what happens every single time. Someone makes a bold claim about women's basketball without Caitlin Clark. And within minutes, her fan base shows up with receipts, specific numbers, actual attendance figures, verifiable records, not manufactured hype, not corporate-funded spectacles, real fans paying real money to see real basketball. And the contrast is brutal, because when you put Caitlin Clark's 55,000 in Iowa next to Unrivaled's 21,000 in Philadelphia, the difference isn't just numerical, it's categorical.
No, not a packed house. Not a packed house for a college game. Unrivaled. I mean, I'm willing to bet you money people paid up for those tickets, by the way. Just my guess that people actually paid up for those tickets. I mean, that's my guess.
One person in the comments nailed it perfectly. Random person makes false statement. Caitlin Clark fanbase corrects random person with facts. Random person then claims that fanbase is toxic and bad for women's sports for speaking the truth. That's the cycle. That's how this works now. You can't acknowledge that Caitlin Clark is the single biggest draw in women's basketball history without someone accusing you of being divisive. Even when the numbers are undeniable. Even when the evidence is sitting right there in a football stadium in Iowa with 55,000 witnesses.
I mean, there you go. There you go. By the way, I think this particular person, I believe, let's look. I can't tell. Is this, we got ourselves a Paige Becker's fan page, I think, is what we had got.
And here's the thing about manufactured attendance versus organic demand. When Iowa put that game in Kinnick Stadium, they didn't need to give away tickets. They didn't need corporate sponsors buying bulk seats to inflate numbers. They announced the game, and 55,000 people showed up because they wanted to see Caitlin Clark play basketball. That's real demand. That's what actual star power looks like. Not a carefully orchestrated event with suspicious ticket distribution and convenient corporate partnerships.
Get Caitlin Clark in Lucas Oil Stadium and see what happens. Yeah. Get her in the Indiana Fever in Lucas Oil Stadium to play a game. Go over, retweet this. See how loud you can get.
Now imagine what happens if the Indiana Fever actually listens to this idea. Get Caitlin Clark into Lucas Oil Stadium, the Colts' home field, 70,000 seat capacity. You think she couldn't fill it? After what happened in Iowa, after the way she's drawn crowds everywhere she's played, the WNBA is sitting on the biggest draw in women's sports history, and they're still figuring out how to maximize it. Meanwhile, Unrivaled is out here claiming attendance records with 21,000 people and hoping nobody notices the asterisk. Let's talk about what really happened here and why it matters for the future of women's basketball. Because this isn't just about attendance numbers or social media arguments. This is about the fundamental dishonesty in how women's sports growth is being marketed right now. Unrivaled held their event in Philadelphia on what they called the greatest basketball day in the history of women's anything. 21,490 people showed up, and immediately the narrative machine kicked into gear. Largest attendance ever for a women's sporting event. Historic moment. Game-changing day for women's basketball. Except every single part of that narrative was either misleading or outright false. First problem, it wasn't even close to the largest attendance for a women's sporting event. Not even in the same universe. The Nebraska volleyball match that drew 92,000 fans happened in September 20. That's 4 times the Unrivaled number. But somehow, that gets memory hold when it's time to celebrate Unrivaled's achievement. Second problem, it wasn't the largest attendance for women's basketball either. Caitlin Clark's game at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa drew 55,000 fans in October 20. That's more than double what Unrivaled pulled. And it was for a college game. Not a professional league, not a manufactured all-star event, a regular season college basketball game. Third problem, the way those 21,000 tickets were distributed is extremely suspicious. When you hear about individual players buying 60 tickets for friends and family, when you hear about corporate bulk purchases and strategic giveaways, you start to realize this wasn't organic fan demand. This was a coordinated effort to manufacture an attendance number that could be used for marketing purposes. And that's where the real problem lies. Because when you artificially inflate numbers and then claim them as proof of organic growth, you're setting up women's sports for a credibility crisis. Fans aren't stupid. They can tell the difference between real demand and manufactured hype. They saw what happened when Caitlin Clark played in Iowa. They watched 55,000 people pay money to sit in an outdoor football stadium in October weather to watch college basketball. That's real. That's undeniable. That's what actual star power looks like. But here's what makes this situation particularly frustrating. The people celebrating Unrivaled's attendance are the same people who spent all of last season trying to downplay Caitlin Clark's impact. They claimed her fan base was toxic. They said focusing on one player was bad for the league. They argued that women's basketball needed to move beyond individual stars and celebrate the collective talent. And then the moment they get a decent attendance number, they're doing victory laps and claiming it as proof the sport doesn't need Caitlin Clark. The cognitive dissonance is stunning. You can't spend months arguing against star-driven marketing and then immediately pivot to celebrating attendance numbers the moment you think you've got one that doesn't involve Caitlin Clark. That's not a coherent strategy, that's just hoping people won't notice the contradiction. And Caitlin Clark fans absolutely noticed. Within minutes of that unrivaled attendance claim hitting social media, the receipts started flowing. 55,000 in Iowa, 92,000 for Nebraska volleyball. Actual numbers. Actual proof that the unrivaled claim was nonsense. And instead of acknowledging the correction, instead of admitting the initial claim was wrong, the response was to attack the people providing facts. Suddenly, correcting misinformation became evidence of toxicity. Providing accurate attendance figures became proof that Caitlin Clark fans are bad for women's sports. That's the game now. Make a false claim. Get corrected with facts. Accuse the people correcting you of being divisive. Rinse and repeat. And it's destroying any chance of having honest conversations about what's actually working in women's basketball and what isn't. Because here's what's actually working. Caitlin Clark. Her impact on attendance, viewership, and revenue is unprecedented in WNBA history. Every metric confirms, every number supports it. The Indiana Fever went from one of the least watched teams in the league to must-see television. Their attendance doubled, their road games became sellouts in arenas that had never seen that kind of demand for women's basketball. That's not opinion, that's documented fact. And instead of building on that success, instead of figuring out how to maximize the opportunity she represents, we're getting these weird attempts to prove the league can succeed without her. Unrivaled's attendance stunt is just the latest example. Look, we got 21,000 people to show up, and Caitlin Clark wasn't even there. As if that proves anything except that you can manufacture a decent crowd with enough corporate backing and free tickets. The question nobody wants to ask is, what happens next for Unrivaled? What do the television ratings look like? Because the 20,000 people who normally watch Unrivaled on TV were sitting in that Philadelphia arena. So did the ratings completely collapse? Did anyone tune? Or was the entire event designed to generate one headline about attendance without any consideration for sustainable growth? That's the pattern we keep seeing. Short-term marketing stunts that generate headlines but don't build anything lasting. And meanwhile, the one player who's actually proven she can drive sustained growth and genuine fan engagement is taking a break after carrying the league's ratings for an entire season. Think about what Caitlin Clark accomplished in her rookie year. The Fever's games averaged higher viewership than most NBA teams. Their playoff games drew numbers the WNBA hadn't seen in over 2 decades. She brought new fans to the sport. She brought new sponsors. She brought new media attention. And the response from parts of the WNBA ecosystem was to resent it, to question whether it was good for the league, to argue that one player getting too much attention was somehow problematic. That's insane. That's not how you build a professional sports league. You don't look at your biggest star and biggest draw and treat them like a problem to be managed. You build around them. You maximize their impact. You use their platform to elevate everyone else. That's what the NBA did with Michael Jordan. That's what the NFL did with Tom Brady. That's what every successful sports league has done with their transcendent talents. But the WNBA seems determined to do the opposite. And events like Unrivaled's attendance stunt are part of that pattern. Their attempts to prove that women's basketball can thrive without Caitlin Clark, without acknowledging that she's the reason most of those 21,000 people even know what Unrivaled is. She's the reason women's basketball is in the cultural conversation right now. She's the reason corporate sponsors are suddenly interested in investing, and here's the really frustrating part. This isn't helping anyone. It's not helping Unrivaled, because their attendance claim got immediately debunked and now looks dishonest. It's not helping the WNBA, because it reinforces the perception that the league doesn't know how to market its biggest assets. And it's definitely not helping women's basketball as a whole, because it creates this false narrative that manufactured attendance numbers matter more than sustainable fan growth. So where does this leave us? The Indiana Fever should absolutely put Caitlin Clark in Lucas Oil Stadium next season. 70,000 seat capacity. See what happens. See if she can fill it the way she filled Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, because that would be a real test. That would be genuine proof of drawing power. Not corporate ticket giveaways, not manufactured event. Just put the game out there and see who shows up. And if she fills Lucas Oil Stadium, if 70,000 people pay money to watch the Indiana Fever play basketball, then maybe we can finally stop pretending that Caitlin Clark's impact is anything other than transformational. Maybe we can stop with the attendance stunts and the misleading claims and the desperate attempts to prove the sport doesn't need its biggest star. Maybe we can just acknowledge reality and build accordingly. Because right now, the gap between Caitlin Clark's proven drawing power and everyone else's isn't closing. It's widening. And pretending otherwise, manufacturing attendance numbers to create a false narrative, that's not going to change it. The only thing that's going to change it is other players and other leagues doing the actual work of building genuine fan bases and creating real demand. Not corporate-funded spectacles, not bulk ticket purchases. Real fans paying real money because they genuinely want to see the product. That's what Caitlin Clark has. That's what 55,000 people in Iowa proved. That's what sold-out arenas across the WNBA proved all season long. And until someone else can replicate that kind of organic demand, maybe we should stop pretending attendance stunts are equivalent achievement. They're not, and the fans know it. The numbers prove it. And no amount of victory laps on social media is going to change that fundamental reality.